Good afternoon, everyone. It is Mondays with Vish. I'm Grant Cohn. That is Vish Kumaran. Vish, how are you? Good to see you.
I'm doing good, man. School just started back up, so readjusting to life where got to get up in the morning and have to study and all those types of things.
Got to do your day job, but now it's time to talk 49ers. We're going to talk about Deshaun Watson a lot today because that's the topic on every Niners fan's mind. And I think everyone realizes it's a fantasy, but there's also some reality here to it, so we should talk about it. But before we get into that, we need to address the elephant in the room, which is a much bigger concern and something that should be on the forefront of the 49ers' minds and your minds. Trent Williams. Vish, I don't need to give context. You get right into it. What's going on in your opinion with Trent Williams, and why is this such a crucial matter?
So you've been talking about this topic for the last week, and I think you've been nailing it. It should be worrying. I'm worried as a fan. It's because I think that from the 49ers perspective, especially when I saw Jeremy Fowler's report that, hey, they tried to reach an extension week 17, they couldn't, and just hearing Trent Williams' comments postseason, he's not going to be a guy that I think we can just guarantee and say he's coming back. I still think that the Niners are his first choice, like he said. But I don't think this is going to be a situation where Trent Williams does what Jimmy Ward did last year, which is I got more money from two other teams, but I'm going to come back to the Niners. I think Trent Williams wants to maximize his value this free agency, as he should, as any NFL athlete should. And I think this is his last big shot at a big contract. And I think that if the Niners are going to bring him back, I think they have to pay the full premium to bring him back. I don't think Trent Williams is going to sacrifice a few $1,000,000 just to come back here. I think what he will do is if he gets three offers that are the same, I think he'll let the Niners match the offer and give them the opportunity to pay him the most. And if they do, then I think he'll welcome a return here. And so I'm really worried that way because paying him $23 million when you got to pay Fred Warner and then you go into, because everybody, like 2021 is the year everybody wants to talk about, let's say 2021 is a down year. Niners don't win the Super Bowl. They make the playoffs. Let's just say that whatever happens, they don't win the Super Bowl. 2022, I doubt that the cap is just going to resurge to back it where it was. I think that this down, we're going to have a slow growth back to where we were with the cap. And in 2022, the Niners would have Fred Warner's extension kick in. They would have Eric Armstead's contract start to pay. And they would have a lot of guys that are going to be free agents. So Trent Williams also being in there at $20-something million as a cap hit would really reduce flexibility and all of those types of things. I still think they can bring him back, and I still think they will bring him back, but I don't think it's as much a done deal as people would like to assume.
No, I don't think so either. I think the Niners miscalculated. I think they felt that if they did everything right, they played the good guy, if they appeased Trent Williams, that he would do him a favor at the back end of the season. Remember, he didn't play last year. He was very upset with the Washington football team. He didn't get any money in 2019. Comes to the Niners. They give him money up front to make him happy. They say, we're not going to tag you to make him happy. And then they clearly were trying to get him to agree to a long-term extension before the season ended, before free agency started, and failed. Couldn't do it. That was the plan, to get him to agree. They couldn't do it. And it's funny. It's like, I see what they're trying to do, right? But they could have asked us, hey, Grant, Vish, do you think this is going to work? We'd be like, no, he's going to want to hit free agency for a lot of reasons, right?
Yeah, I mean, McQueen 49ers said it best. He wants the bag. Who can blame him? Absolutely no one can blame him. I think from the Niners' perspective, they thought, well, if we do right by him, we reduce this franchise tag and stuff, we might be able to negotiate with him all season and be able to get the contract done. I think it's wishful thinking. I think the thought process is noble, but I like what Trent Williams is doing, and I'm a Niners fan. I like the fact that
I'll do the same thing.
He's not giving in to the giant corporation, and he's doing his business the way his his business should be dealt with. I really enjoy that, and I just think it's really cool that Trent Williams is. What up, Jason? That Trent Williams is doing this because I think it's really good for athletes everywhere. I still hope the Niners get the deal done. I really think that would be amazing if they could get the deal done. I still think they can, but it's going to be a big time deal.
And my question here is like, Yeah, I mean, they could definitely pay him $23 million
Yeah.
a year. That's no problem. It's just who you let go. What does that mean for Jason Verrett, for Fred Warner, for Jimmy Garoppolo? Can you give Jimmy Garoppolo $26.9 million a year? Can you, while giving Trent Williams $23 million a year and Fred Warner potentially $19-20 million a year? Eric Armstead $17 million a year. Kittle $15 million a year. Bosa is going to be about 20, maybe 30 million a year in a couple of years.
Right.
All of a sudden, it's like, can you really pay for all of these things?
The thing is, right? Fans always like to say, forget about the years after. Let's just worry about the next year. That's not how the NFL works, and that's not how these teams think. They're constantly thinking about guys that are coming up that they have to pay, and they're trying to value guys that way. So you can say, well, forget about it. We'll deal with it when it comes. But I think the 49ers are definitely considering, well, hey, we got to do a Nick Bosa extension in 2 years. Look at what Joey Bosa just got paid. If Nick Bosa stays healthy the next 2 years, then I'm assuming that he's going to want what Joey Bosa got paid or more. So that's an extension that has to be on the back of the 49ers' mind, right? The Fred Warner extension is right now. Everybody loves Deebo Samuel. He was a second-round pick. There's no fifth-year option. Do you think if Deebo Samuel continues to play the way Deebo Samuel has played, he doesn't want to get extended after 3 years? Absolutely he does. And that's what happens, right? So you can't pay everybody. And that's where, they're going to have to make decisions, right? Mm-hmm. It's going to be, they made the same decision last year with DeForest. Well, let's trade DeForest Buckner and let's go on with Eric Armstead. There's going to be more decisions like this similarly. I mean, it's noble, right? It's utopic to just think, hey, just don't worry about it. We can worry about the cap next year the way the Saints did. But the Saints are basically just watch. They're going to start cutting a lot of people. They're going to cut Quan Alexander. Drew Brees is going to retire. There's going to be the Saints. There's going to be a lot of good players from New Orleans next year that we're going to say, hey, I thought they were good. Why are they cutting him? Cap casualty. And
right.
those are the things that start to happen. And, we can sit. And so that's why I'm just worried. I'm more worried than anything because I really would like Trent Williams to be a 49er for the future. I think he would like to too. But I'm trying to just go through the numbers here and look at it and say, well, how are they going to pay Trent Williams and take care of it? Like you can save money, right, by cutting D Ford, cutting Jimmy Garoppolo, cutting Weston Richburg. But if there's no better quarterback option or they don't have a quarterback option, then cutting Jimmy Garoppolo is risky. There's a lot of decisions to make. Like I said last show, I'm just happy that I get to sit in this chair in my house 1 hour on Monday and just do the critiquing portion because the decision making is nearly impossible.
Well, here's the way I look at it. I'm not saying that I don't necessarily expect Trent Williams to sign anywhere else. The Niners traded a third for him. They've done everything. They made it real clear that they think he's like the greatest player of all time. I think they're going to bring him back, and I think they're going to bring him back at whatever price he feels he can get. So that's not really the issue. The issue is, and I think you agree with me, basically.
Yeah, I think they'll end up paying it.
I think he's coming back. I mean, they've made it clear that he's a special player, not someone that Kyle created, someone that they've been blessed to work with. So
and
I think I think the real issue here is who's he going to force off the team? Because I think he's going to end up being maybe $3-4 million a year more expensive than the Niners expected. The cap's coming down. I think he might he could force off Jimmy. He could force off Jason Verrett. We don't know, but there will be ramifications to his expensiveness. Don't you think?
And I think what really killed them, someone said I look like my parents. Yeah, my parents do pay my car insurance. I'm 21. But I think the thing that the thing that bothers me, right, with Trent Williams is you say who's going to force off the team. I think the thing they didn't consider is I think when they thought the cap went down, they thought other teams would start doing these deals more carefully. So they thought the Laramie Tunsil deal would be an outlier in the market. But bang, beginning of the season, Ravens fork it over to Ronnie Stanley, $20+ million. Then before he got hurt, I think 1 week before he got hurt, the Green Bay Packers handed the $20 million plus extension to David Bakhtiari. I'm sure when both of those things happened, John Lynch, Parag Marathe, they're all like, oh my God.
And Trent Williams is like, where the money reside, where the money
because
yes, right.
If you remember when the Laramie Tunsil extension was signed, people were like, oh my God, this is crazy. Bill O'Brien, what are you doing? Like the trade for him was already crazy, but now you're paying him like $4 or $5 million above what the market is paying, blah, blah, blah. But he set the market. That's where the market is now. And Trent Williams is that good, and he deserves to be paid that money. And that's unfortunate that it happened that way. Fortunate for Trent Williams, unfortunate for the 49ers. I think we both agree.
Fortunate for Trent Williams. That dude, it worked. It broke exactly his way.
And I think we both agree at the end of the day, he's coming back, right?
I think
but him coming back for $4 million
on his terms.
Right. It's extra, right?
All right, we got a question from Kid Thrax that we'll take, and then we'll get into the Deshaun Watson stuff. But first, Kid Thrax says, "What's your thoughts on possibly trading for Tua, or is Trask our future?" It's a good question. I mean, if we're in the Max Jones Trask category, if we're looking there, well, Tua is sort of maybe comparable, maybe, and seems to be available. So, Vish, what do you think about the Niners possibly pursuing Tua?
I don't like Tua. I didn't like Tua before the draft. I don't mind Tua in terms of the Niners pursuing him depending on the price. He was just drafted 5th overall, so I'm assuming it's still going to be a high price to pay for him. He's still really young. He's on a rookie contract. He's got stuff that I like. I think he would be a fit for the offense. But I think with Tua, the thing you always have to take into account is his medical history. And I just think that that's way too risky, given that the 49ers are moving off of a quarterback that they haven't been his biggest issue is that he's not been available. We can get into why, but he just hasn't been available. And bringing in someone who's a true medical risk by all accounts before he got drafted, and that hip injury being as serious as it is, I would just stay away. And then is Trask our future? I'm not sure if he's the future. I'm not sure if he's a franchise quarterback or anything. I think the way people stand on Kyle, excuse me, I called him Kyle Trask. He's actually Kyle Trask. Where people stand on him, I think, is often something that I don't like, right? I like nuance. I like being in the middle. I like to try and understand both sides. There's Grant, who really likes Kyle Trask. And then there's anti-Grant, who likes to go on Twitter because Grant likes Kyle Trask and say Kyle Trask is bad. I think he's okay. Yeah, right? I think he's okay. I think he's fine. He's got some good things about him. He's got some not so good things about him. Grant's right about the good things he has. The other people are also right about the things he doesn't have. But
they are.
He's neither bad nor great. He's pretty good. And it all depends with a guy like that of where you draft him, right? If you're taking Kyle Trask 10th overall, probably not worth the value based on physical traits. If you're taking Kyle Trask in the middle of the 2nd round, that's a pretty solid pick, right? He has, 30 starts in college. He's played in a pro-style offense. He has a bunch of passing reps. He has viable 2nd-round type traits. He doesn't have anything elite, but everything is okay. And by all accounts, I mean, he's a good guy, good locker room presence, everything like that. So I think maybe that could be a possibility, but who knows at this point? Nobody knows anything about the draft.
Mac Jones or right. It's like a value.
Right.
A value. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, so I mean, as far as Tua is concerned, I don't like Tua. I mean, honestly, I think if he could go again, he'd be like a day 3 pick because to me, he looks like a backup. He looks like a freaking backup. I mean, his tools aren't anything special. His arm is not strong. He's not particularly fast. He's not super elusive. He's like a nice backup. He's small. He's like Doug Flutie. Is that super harsh? I mean, he's 6-2 this year. I just he makes Mac Jones look like Matthew Stafford, dude. He really has like a water pistol for a gun.
Yeah, someone says left-handed Jimmy G. I actually do see that. Similarly, he's got this great quick release and great motion without a lot of power. I think he has a bit more anticipation and more highs in terms of his field vision, at least in Alabama and stuff, than Jimmy G. But he also brings the same injury concerns and all of that. Maybe he's cheaper. I don't know. I don't know if he would be a day 3 pick, but I certainly don't think anybody would pick him near where they picked Justin Herbert. I mean, there's a big difference here physically, and Tua is also small. So
the reason I say day 3 is because to me he's looking like a long-term backup. If I'm wrong, then I'm wrong, and he's deserving of a round 1 pick. Any starter is, but to me he looks like I don't know. He looks like backup arm. Average mobility.
Okay,
real small.
I think he looks like a tier 3 type quarterback, which is a pretty good player. It's just not the player you want to draft at number 5. That's where I think the problem becomes. Yeah. I think he's okay. I think he's got room to grow. I think he will grow by all accounts. He's a nice guy, all of those things. It's just that with him, I just can't. That injury concern, like I can't get it out of my head. The fact that he's had so many ankle surgeries, the hip, all of those things.
Put him behind the worst offensive line in the league. Put him behind the offensive line that gave up 78 quarterback hits last. And what do you expect's going to happen? I mean, he was behind the best offensive line in the SEC and got hurt.
Right.
So
throwing to weapons that get open right away. So it wasn't like he had to really hold on to the ball. So
he really is like Jimmy G, man. Can't stay healthy. I'm sorry. That's actually a good comp. I think Jimmy G has a stronger arm than him. What's the odds of getting Andrew Luck out of retirement? 0.
Yeah.
I wish, hey man, 0.0.0. No, too many decimals. What do you think of Watson for Jimmy first and somehow dishing Armstead to free cap space? All right, good question. Let's talk Watson. All right, we're gonna answer that question in our own way. We're getting to it. All right. So here's what we want to do. Instead of saying like, hey, it's not going to work for the Niners to get Watson for these reasons and going about it in a negative way, what we want to do is let's entertain this idea. Let's say this is possible. Let's play it out from every perspective, from Houston's perspective, from the Niners' perspective, and then talk about it at the end to see if it's something you think is worthwhile and feasible. So, yeah. Vish, let's talk it out from Houston's perspective first.
So starting with the deal that guy just offered.
Oh, from the 49ers perspective first.
Yeah. So if the 49ers could offer that and get Deshaun Watson, I think you could sign everybody in the world up. That's like a fleece and a half. That's
right. Like if all it was Jimmy and a couple of firsts, do that.
If they can get Jimmy, why not just trade for Mahomes? 2 firsts, Jimmy, and we'll throw in Eric. We'll throw in the extra first for Mahomes. But that's not how the NFL works, right? So let's get into this Deshaun Watson. So I want to start off by saying, I love the idea of Deshaun Watson being on the 49ers. I love that idea. I loved that idea in 2017. It didn't happen, but I'm a huge Deshaun Watson fan. I think he's one of the 5 quarterbacks in the NFL that Grant always talks about this topic on Twitter. He talks about it on his shows, but he talks about quarterbacks that he thinks make too much money. The quarterback in general makes too much money. Deshaun Watson's one of those quarterbacks where I say, Grant, to heck your stats, all of those things. Whatever Deshaun wants, I'm going to pay him. I think he's that good, and I think there's only 5 guys who are that good. So I feel that strongly about Deshaun Watson. So let's play it out from the 49ers perspective, right? I've seen a lot of hypothetical offers thrown out, but I've only seen one factual, informative offer thrown out. And that was 4 days ago when the Deshaun Watson stuff first started swirling. Benjamin Albright, who's not Grant's friend, but is a noted league insider, this was what he said. He said the Deshaun Watson, for the deal to start, he said that the asking price for it to be discussed hypothetically would have to start at 3 firsts, 3 seconds, and a player. Okay, that's the starting point.
That's the Herschel Walker trade.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's take the Herschel Walker trade and say it's the Herschel Walker trade. Let's say the 49ers make it. Okay, 2021. I think that would be their Super Bowl year. You got to go all in. Why do I say that? Deshaun Watson's cap hit, $15.4 million, extremely feasible. Eric Armstead's cap hit, $12.5 million. I think George Kittle is in the 12 to 15 range. I think you cut D Ford, you lose Jimmy, you lose Weston Richburg, you bring back Trent Williams.
Also, the long-term ramifications of trading 6 picks haven't hurt you yet. It's year 1. That's something that hurts you down the line because that's your lifeblood to rebuild.
Right. We'll get into it, right? Yeah. You got Deshaun Watson, you got Kyle Shanahan, healthy Debo, healthy Brandon Ayuk. You have Richie James, right? You have George Kittle. You bring back Trent Williams. Guess what? When you extend Fred Warner's deal, though it will be front-loaded, it'll be an extension, right? They're not going to tear up year 4. So he's going to have a low cap hit. Mike McGlinchey, though I can almost guarantee they're going to accept that 5th-year option, he's only a $6 million cap hit for a tackle in that year 4. So 2021 all in. I think here's where I say, can you win the Super Bowl in 1 year? Because Deshaun Watson, quarterback that level, coach this level, usually, right, you think Super Bowl, but it takes a year for them to gel. I think it would take a year to gel.
Real quick. Also, if you trade for Deshaun Watson, can you give Trent Williams a 5-year contract where he's making $23 million a year? I don't think you
You'd
can.
have to get very creative with the structure.
I don't think you can. I think you'd have to go a little bit cheaper at left tackle and say, you know what, we're paying Deshaun Watson to make magic in the pocket and to protect himself to a certain extent. Sorry.
Right, because the big thing would be not 2021, right? You could fit him in 2021. They have a lot of backloaded contracts.
Right.
2022,
Yeah.
2023, how do you fit him in? Maybe, let's say Parag gets super creative. You get Trent back, you get Verrett back. Maybe Verrett's a short-term deal, 2-year deal. Okay, so now you got this cap thing figured out. So let's say they don't win. Let's say they win the Super Bowl in 2021, right? Then we would all be happy, right? Because then we could be the Green Bay Packers after 2011. We could be the Seattle Seahawks after 2012. We have a few highly paid players, a great quarterback, a really good coach. Green Bay didn't have one, but they had a great quarterback, and Seattle has basically both, and the Niners would have both, and we would make the playoffs every year. If they don't win it, right, you would just think, hey, retool in 2022. We were this close. We lost in the NFC Championship game, or we lost in the NFC Divisional round. Our team was great. One more year of Deshaun, but here's what starts to happen. Here's what starts to happen. How are you going to retool this roster, right?
What?
Because guess who goes in 2022? Laken Tomlinson. Guess who's played 3 years and becomes a restricted free agent? Daniel Brunskill. Well, Daniel Brunskill, right? Just tender him. Second round tender. Yeah. That's $3 million. Do you have cap room to pay the $3 million? Who knows? Then maybe your 6th round tender, you lose Daniel Brunskill. So these kind of things start to play in, right? Because now you're gonna have, right? You're gonna have Deshaun Watson. You're gonna have Raheem Mostert on his last deal. You're gonna have Jimmy Ward on his last deal. I think Jeff Wilson. If I'm right, this is restricted. Is he restricted this year and unrestricted the next year?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, because you 18, 19, 20, so restricted and then unrestricted next year. Yes.
Right. So I think he fits into that category too, right?
Yeah.
So
yes.
This is where I go into it, and I'm trying to work out, like, how do you retool this roster, right? Because usually if you have a bunch of highly paid players, you start to try to draft and get cheaper guys to fit into your roster.
Right.
They're not going to be able to fill out their roster through the draft.
And they won't have a round 1 pick or a round 2 pick until like 2025.
Right. And like the idea of good quarterback, good coach. Great quarterback always works with this, right? There's 2 types of great quarterbacks. There's the Tom Brady, who has the coach, has the roster, has everything. And then there's Aaron Rodgers, who's been carrying everything. And everyone says, well, put Aaron Rodgers on the Patriots and it would work. But Tom Brady also took $15 million to play for the Patriots the last 10 years. Aaron Rodgers took $30 million. That's the point Grant makes. And so where you would start to get into it is that I'm not saying that this would happen. I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I'm not saying this is a good thing. But I think what would happen is I think Kyle Shanahan, Deshaun Watson overall, good enough to make the playoffs. But I think that they would always be a couple pieces short because, like, you can bring up the Chiefs, right? Good quarterback, good coach. But that quarterback's cheap and that roster is loaded. That roster is loaded. Nobody brings up how stacked that roster is every single year, but it is loaded. And so we can, right? I don't even think the idea of trading for Deshaun Watson is plausible in any capacity, just because I'm a see it to believe it kind of guy when it comes to somebody this good, this young. I need to see this happen, and then I'll believe it and say, whoa, this happened. But go ahead.
Well, it just seems to me that with the night, what we're seeing, like what we're projecting out is 2-3 years down the line, the Niners would be a team with 8 superstars, not superstars, but 8 players making premium, top of the market money, paid to be superstars, and a team with no middle class, no mid-level players, no depth, a bunch of guys you get at the dollar store because you don't have draft picks, a bunch of late picks. That's the way I mean, day 3 picks. And so they're the Cowboys. They're the Cowboys at that point. Because every year the Cowboys, hey, at least we got Dak and Amari and Zeke, and it's like and now you're 8-8.
Their only difference is they'll make the playoffs because they have a good coach and the Cowboys don't. So they have that, right? But then if we're talking Super Bowl long-term dynasty, right? If you pick Deshaun Watson in 2017, Niners might be trending that way of 10 years of long-term success, all of that. I just think that there's so much. You say we got Greenlaw in store. Guess what? Greenlaw, this is his 3rd year, 2021. 2022, Greenlaw is bye-bye if you have Deshaun Watson, Eric Armstead, all these guys. And then how do you replace Greenlaw, you know? So I'm not saying this is bad. I'm not saying this is good. I'd love Deshaun Watson to play, but I just think that these are the conversations the Niners themselves, if this is plausible, we don't know how feasible this is. We don't know what conversations they're having. But if they deem this, I'm sure that these are the conversations they're having. And they're probably thinking about, well, how do we get creative? If we can do this, right? You want to get Deshaun Watson. Who wouldn't want to get Deshaun Watson? But how can we be creative in ensuring that we're getting the best roster around Deshaun Watson every single year if this is the draft capital that we would have to give up?
Because you don't want to be Houston. You already see a team that's messed it up, and he just went like, what, 4-12 this year?
Yeah, and
So what Vish and I are saying here is that if the Niners pull off this trade, we don't necessarily believe it would lead to a Super Bowl victory for them. And their best chance would be this upcoming season. If they don't get it done in the first year of the marriage between Watson and Shanahan, it might get progressively more difficult down the line as he gets expensive and assets dwindle away.
Right. And, he, like, with Deshaun, right, I don't even think that I think their 4-12 this season is misleading. I think they had the worst possible starting schedule of any roster. They had to play Kansas City. They had to play Baltimore. They had to play Pittsburgh. They had Buffalo somewhere in there early. And they were done. Their season was over before it started and Billy O'Brien was gone. I could see if they bring back Will Fuller, maybe move a couple players around on defense and get a couple more people that way and just get a slight upgraded head coach. Not hard to do. Bill O'Brien's okay. He's not great. Maybe they hire Brian Daboll, whatever. I could see them being 9-7 next year and being the 7th seed in the playoffs with Deshaun Watson. Yeah. I think he's that good. So, and I think their schedule will be much more favorable now that they don't have to play a first place schedule. They're playing a fourth place schedule. So I just think that there's so much right here that we have to get into. And it's not as simple as, hey, trade for Deshaun Watson, do whatever is necessary, right? That's basic. We have to get into every little detail.
Right. So what Vish and I are saying is, if from our perspective, if we were running the 49ers, this would not be the move we would make. We would not do the Herschel Walker trade for Deshaun Watson. We don't think it would be in our interest as the 49ers executives. We don't think this is the Niners' best move. But now
I'm not even sure about that. I haven't even made a decision. I'm just throwing out all the variables. Somebody else can make the decision. I'll give you the reason.
It seems like to me it's not the best move. But let's now look at it from Houston's perspective. Let's say that the Niners have decided they want to do it regardless of what we think, and that Watson's into it. He's like, all right, fine. I just want to get out. If that's the best way to go, then let me go to Santa Clara. Let's think this through from Houston's perspective. Is this the move they want to make, trading Watson to the 49ers?
It sounds crazy because every franchise, the reason you pick a quarterback, everything you want is Deshaun Watson. But because of how badly Bill O'Brien managed all their assets, their cap and everything, frankly, if they could, if it's anything but a Herschel Walker type deal, not worth it. If it is the Herschel Walker deal, I think it would be in their best interest because you get to totally rebuild this entire thing. And, you may never get a quarterback as good as Deshaun. Agreed. But you may get 5 players that can probably account and help out that quarterback much more than the 5 undrafted guys helping out Deshaun. Right. So that's where I would stand with that. But again, it's got to be the Herschel Walker trade. Otherwise, don't do it because he's the most marketable. He's charismatic. He's got arm strength. He's got everything you want in a quarterback. So that's what I would say from Houston's perspective.
Well, let me reframe this question for you. I didn't put it. Let's put it this way. Let's say the Niners call up and we're like, you know what, we're down. Like, we'll give you the Herschel Walker package, 3 firsts, our next 3 firsts, our next 3 seconds. And you know what? Let's say Miami calls them too, and we're like, you know what, we'll do the Herschel Walker trade too. We'll give 3 firsts, 3 seconds, and Tua. So let's say they get multiple offers that are pretty comparable in terms of the amount of picks. And Houston's sitting there like, all right, okay. We could send them to Miami, and they're in the AFC, or we could send them to the Niners, and they're in the NFC. Get them out of our conference. Do you think Houston will look at the Niners picks 12th in 2021, God knows what in 2022 with Deshaun Watson on the team? Is that the best package? What do you think?
It depends. It really depends, right? Because I think if the Niners throw in Jimmy G, I've seen that a lot. I think everybody's just ready to get rid of Jimmy G. So they're like, hey, I know we don't like Jimmy G, but guess what? Jimmy G has this amazing value, so let's throw him in and just trade him for Deshaun Watson.
Trade him for a first-round pick. Yeah.
Yeah, right? I've seen this everywhere. That's probably not how this is going to work. Just because Nick Caserio drafted and liked Eastern Illinois Jimmy G, or was part of an organization that did that, doesn't mean that he's totally enamored with Jimmy Garoppolo at 30 years old, or about to turn 30 years old, had a couple injuries the last few years, and just his contract is hefty. Like, they're not going to sign him to cut him. So yeah, you can move off his contract. They're not going to move off his contract, which means he's making what? I think you calculated. Is it 13% of the cap?
Who?
Jimmy Garoppolo?
Next year it'll be 15. Next year it'll be 15%
of the cap, right? Yeah. So you can't rebuild like that.
No, you can't.
So the Herschel Walker trade, so the Jimmy G, that part of the equation, I'd throw it out. I don't know. I just think from Houston's perspective, it's not prudent to – I mean, you would like them to take the 49ers offer. I would like them to take the 49ers offer. But I think this AFC, NFC thing is overrated. When you're trading a guy like that, you just got to take the best possible offer.
Yeah.
And if Miami's throwing in that number 3 pick and you're enamored with one of those 3 quarterbacks, then you're starting fresh right away with one of those 3 quarterbacks, and you're now well on your way.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think the Niners really can compete with that Miami trade package. I mean, the 12th pick in the draft and Jimmy G, that's great. And you can give them all kind of first round picks, but you can't guarantee that you can replace Deshaun Watson with the 12th pick. You can't guarantee that Jimmy Garoppolo will even play 16 games. He might be a backup quarterback in the NFL if he can't stay healthy. And then after that, like the 2021 pick could be a late first. I mean, the 2022 pick could be a late first if the Niners are as great as they should be. I mean, Houston could potentially be getting a 12th pick, a bunch of late first round picks, and Jimmy. It seems to me that they should be looking for a team like Carolina or who do we do? Miami. Anyone else that has like a top 7-8 pick, not a 12th pick. Maybe.
Who knows? And everybody throws in Deshaun Watson's trade clause, right? And I think, but the way, if I remember trade clauses, just seeing how they've worked over the years, there's usually more than one team that the guy is interested in going to. Like, right. I think Niners fans have just assumed it's the 49ers. Chris Mortensen reported that the Dolphins is where he's going to be reported, is where he's been hearing. And, Chris Mortensen's word is kind of, he's usually, if he says something, it's probably going to happen. He's like kind of like an Adam Schefter, and he's been around a long time, and he's usually not wrong with these kinds of things. So he said the Dolphins. But the point is, let's just say that the Niners are in there, and let's say Deshaun Watson gives a list of 4 different teams. Well, the Niners would have to have the best offer between those 4 different teams. And if one of those teams is Miami, maybe the NFC, AFC thing, I don't know. There's so much to unpack with the Deshaun Watson thing. My head is spinning just considering the fact that he could be on the Niners, then taking all the cap numbers, all of that. I'm glad I'm not John Lynch or Parag Marathe or Adam Peters having to actually have this conversation and make decisions on it. That's really hard.
12321 Jello, I mean, who is everyone's best friend, says, do you think John Lynch could throw Fred Warner into the deal?
No.
No.
Okay, let me ask you this, Grant. Okay, you're running a corporation. Okay.
Yeah.
You failed in hiring your best. You've not hired that well. Okay. The best guy you hired, are you willing to just give him away for a superstar from another company? The entire business of the NFL for years.
Look at it this way too. I'm putting myself in Jed York's perspective. I'm looking at John Lynch. You didn't draft Deshaun Watson. You didn't want him. You had a reason. You were like, nah, Solomon Thomas, way better. We're going to take this defensive tackle and make him a DN. He's going to be so much better. We don't want him. And then 4 years later, you're coming to me and be like, hey, Jed, we're going to need to trade 7 picks for Deshaun Watson because I changed my mind. He's great. Like, dude, why do I trust you now? Now you need everything for Deshaun Watson. Like, what are you doing?
And you're talking about a guy like, if they trade Fred Warner and DeForest Buckner, I don't know how I could be a player in that locker room and trust John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. Those were the 2. Fred Warner has started every single game the last 3 years. He's been the consummate professional. At least DeForest Buckner wasn't drafted by this regime. Fred Warner was drafted by this regime. He's improved every year. He's done every single thing they've asked of him. This Fred Warner contract has to be done. It has to be done with the 49ers, and it has to be whatever you pay for him. He's become the leader of their defense, the leader of their team. Yeah, getting Deshaun Watson's awesome, but Fred Warner's got to be one of the 2 or 3 guys that would have to be off limits.
Okay, we're going to move on now. And that last question about the thing, I'm going to come back to that, but Wentz. But I want to stick with Watson and finish this up. We're going to come back to the Wentz question. Whoever left it, thank you for your generous donation. Finally, Vish, we've duped it out from both perspectives. We both kind of feel it doesn't really make sense from either perspective. So now let's predict. What do you think? How does this play out?
Yeah, I'm going to say he stays in Houston. This is Houston's opportunity to be the kid where if I can't play soccer with you guys, then nobody gets to play soccer. So I'm going to take my ball and go home.
I got to tell you, it's complicated because there is a very serious racial element going on here. We got to talk about this.
Right.
I mean, and Watson's right in a lot of ways. I mean,
Absolutely.
His owner had said the thing about the inmates running the asylum. His owner probably is the closest thing to a Donald Sterling owner in the NFL. And he knows it. He knows he plays for that guy.
Real quick, Bob McNair was the one who said it. Cal's the owner now. Bob passed.
Okay, whatever.
Yeah,
but they're related.
Same family, same process, yeah.
So he knows he plays for that organization. I mean, look what black athletes have all fought for the last 6, 7, 8 months. They're all trying to take control of as they should. You know, they're trying to promote black coaches, black executives. And a lot of teams are trying to do that, but not Houston. I mean, they didn't even interview a black GM. They don't seem interested in a black head coach. And it seems like Deshaun Watson's attitude is, well, you know what? I don't want to work here anymore. This is ridiculous. So I respect him for that.
I get that.
So for him to come back, I'm trying to think what McNair would have to do. He would have to hire someone like Jim Caldwell. Could Jim Caldwell appease Deshaun Watson?
It's got to be someone like that. And, it feels like I think they did interview Jim Caldwell. And, the upsetting thing about the Rooney Rule at times is that sometimes it feels like just an obligation that owners and coach or people hiring just fulfill the obligation, but don't take those candidates seriously. And, I think the Texans are really the organization that epitomizes that, just looking at the fact that they didn't interview Robert Saleh and Eric Bieniemy, maybe the 2 most prominent candidates in this head coaching cycle, and both of them being minorities. So that element, I think, is 100% right, because there's 2 things. And I think the thing with Houston is that I think they got it. If they're going to move him, they got to get the Herschel Walker deal. Otherwise, I think they're better off if Deshaun Watson just says no to them and retires and steps away, because Houston still has to manage and maximize this as a football team, right? Nick Caserio is a pretty young guy still. He's going to want to be in this business of personnel and managing for years. And if you trade away Deshaun Watson for something that doesn't maximize the full value of what Deshaun Watson's worth, which is as valuable as any player in the NFL when it comes from a marketing perspective, a player perspective, all of those things entailed, when you take into account all of those things, then he's not worth anything. Like, who would want to hire Nick Caserio? Oh, you just traded Deshaun Watson for a box of peanuts. No, so
hold on. So you think he's staying put in Houston, and they may hire a head coach such as Jim Caldwell to appease him.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, though. Let me make my prediction. I think this McNair guy is going to stay true to his roots, because there's basically there's 2 options. There's 2 paths you can take. Appease Deshaun Watson, which is the right thing to do, or take control of your team, show them who's boss. What are the McNairs going to do? What was their famous quote? They don't want the inmates running the asylum. If they appease Deshaun Watson, they're going to think like, hey, man, you give him an inch, he'll take a mile. What's the next thing he's going to want? They already showed that they don't want to appease him by bringing in Nick Caserio in the first place. So hold on. Here's my prediction. What they're going to do is they're going to trade him to Miami. I really believe it. I think they're going to take Tua. They're going to take all those picks, and Watson will be a Miami Dolphin. That's my prediction.
Yeah, I think
they would.
I think that's likely to happen, and I think that's good for Deshaun Watson. Brian Flores and Chris Greer are both black. A black head coach, black general
Jewish
manager,
owner,
right?
Jewish
in positions of power, right? His political donations aside, Jewish owner and all of that.
Really? Anyway,
I think he did donate a lot to the campaign, but whatever, at least he hired Chris Greer and Brian Flores, and that's what it seems. That's also what Deshaun Watson wants, and he would get that. The one thing I would say with that is that if there is something like that, and Deshaun Watson isn't traded for how good he is and all of that, then I think the NFL has got to take a look at what's going on in Houston and all of that. Because all Deshaun Watson asked, right? I think people are starting to take it out of context what he asked. He didn't ask them, you better hire Eric Bieniemy. He said, just
interview him,
take a look at Eric Bieniemy.
Consider him. And the fact that they wouldn't even do that, it's like, hey, like, you won't even listen to your franchise quarterback. Like, you won't even consider this guy. Like, what's the deal? Is it racism? What's going on? Hey, do your thing, Deshaun. Go to the Dolphins. I would rather play for the Miami Dolphins and the Houston Texans. Come on.
Of course.
Come on. All right, we got a quick question, if you don't mind. I think we should take it because the Eagles just fired their head coach today. So they're in the news, and we know that Doug Peterson and Carson Wentz had like a personal falling out. That wasn't going to work. And part of the reason they went to Jalen Hurts in the first place is because Peterson didn't like Wentz. So now that they may be a new head coach, I don't even know if Wentz will be available, but do you think the Niners – we've talked about this so many times. Does this change anything? Do you think the Niners should go after Wentz, Vish?
Correct me if I'm wrong. The way I read this situation is Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman attempting to rectify things with Wentz, right?
That's the way I look at it too, yeah.
The Schefter report was that Peterson and Wentz no longer get along and that's why Wentz wants out. He was really upset about the benching. Well, I've had a lot of Freudian slips today, Jesus. But Wentz's contract is pretty unmovable. And the entire point with Wentz's contract is that they can't really trade him. So the way I read this was get rid of Peterson and try to get the guy that Wentz wants. So I don't think Wentz is even going to be available in this cycle of who gets who at quarterback.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think he's going anywhere. Sean Shepard, I missed your question. I saw the donation. If you ask the question again, I'll answer it. Don't give me any more money. I'm sorry I missed it. I'm sorry, Sean. Just ask the question again. I'll find it and I'll answer it. Tony B says the Texans can't keep Watson. They're better off trading him while he's cheap instead of next year when his cap hit is $40 million going to 2020. I agree with that to an extent. They've proven that they can't build around this guy. In fact, they've ruined their roster trying to do it. I don't know. They got to tear it down and start over. Trade him for what you can. Get Tua. I mean, I guess. I mean, he could end up, if he's not your starter, he could end up being your backup. Whatever. Bring in Tua and start over.
Yeah, it's an impossible situation, right? Because logically what you're saying makes sense, but then there's also the part of the fact that you might never draft a player like Deshaun Watson in your franchise history again. This guy is going to be one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the NFL for 15 years. So.
And that's what people thought about. That's what the Cowboys probably thought about Herschel Walker in 1987. Like, well, we're never going to have a running back like this ever again. Oh, well, they got one.
I think the bigger difference, though, was that Herschel Walker was not an ascending player at the time. Deshaun Watson is still ascending.
And he's a quarterback.
Right.
All right, so let's move on. Let's talk Jimmy. Should the 49ers straight up release Jimmy Garoppolo? I just wrote an article saying it's the best move. And not because of his play, but because of his contract and the fact that the cap's going down, not up. So, I mean, I could make the case again, but I think most people read it. What do you think, man? Should they release him?
So I think you make a great case. It's a topic we actually discussed based on a question last time. This whole idea of the issues with the quarterback market, the fact that you and I don't know how many guys you have, but for me, there's 5 guys that I think are worth any amount of money, and everybody else has to fit into a range. I think every player in every position gets that, but quarterback seems to be the only position where even if you're number 18, even if you're the 18th best quarterback in the NFL, because we have a stacked roster and a great system, we'll pay you every single thing we have just because you're our quarterback. And I think that reset, the example I brought up was if the Browns do it right with Baker Mayfield and hand him a $20 to $25 million contract, then the entire landscape of the league has changed. The Browns pay Baker Mayfield $40 million, then we're still stuck with this same exact problem. So I think that the case that you made out is right? Because I think, is Andy Dalton, is that the guy you suggested in the article? Yeah. Okay, so Andy Dalton, right? Yeah, in theory, right? Is Andy Dalton better than Jimmy Garoppolo? No. But is Andy Dalton for $8 million similar value than Jimmy Garoppolo for $27 million? Yeah, it's pretty similar. You know, Andy Dalton started a lot of games. He's had a really good career. He had a really good, nice career in Cincinnati. He was a similar tier 3 type quarterback. So I mean, in theory, I would say, yeah, releasing him would be maybe the best move. I just think it would be a tough sell overall. And I think the way you present releasing him is it would be too bold. I don't think the
Yeah.
49ers would be that bold because he has won a lot of games and they haven't proven they can win without him. And I think that's why if you listen to Kyle Shanahan, if you listen to John Lynch, let's take away the rumor, the speculation, all of that. Their specific wording is unless we can find somebody.
Let's talk about what they will do, because I want to talk about that in a minute. I just want to focus on what they should do. I understand it would be bold. And I understand if that doesn't work out, that's your ass. I mean, that's your career. Because you just cut a guy who's 24-9 to bring in Andy freaking Dalton, who he started 140. We know who Andy Dalton is.
Right.
So I'm saying, look, I'll make my argument again real quick. The point is that Jimmy Garoppolo, despite all of his virtues, will cost the 49ers 15.1% of their cap next season, assuming it's $176 million, which is what over the cap estimates. For him to get hold on. The point is no quarterback has ever won a Super Bowl making more than 13.1% of the cap of his team. That was Steve Young in 94. Everyone after that's been below 13, including Brady, Peyton Manning, Ben Roethlisberger, Aaron Rodgers. So that's where Jimmy's at. He would have to break a record. He would have to do something unprecedented. And the reason is because the cap's going down. If the cap were $210 million, he'd be in the 12s, which would be okay if he were Tom Brady, but still high. At 15, he's in the Jared Goff area, which is you're screwed. So that's the reason I'm saying I feel like when he's that expensive, in 2019 he was making 8%. That's fine. 15, I feel like the Niners have no chance. So actually getting rid of him and bringing in a guy like Dalton and drafting a guy, I'm not saying they would win the Super Bowl, but I actually think you'd have a better chance because now you can re-sign Verrett. Now you can re-sign Williams too. Now you might even be able to re-sign you. Now you can get all kind of people because you're spending 3% of your cap on the quarterback position as opposed to 20, as opposed to 15.
Okay, fair enough.
That's the
and I think if you lay out the scenario that way and they can get Andy Dalton and they definitely know that there's a guy they can draft and a guy they like, that's a scenario that I would probably end up rolling with.
Okay, so now let's move on and talk about reality. Do you think the Niners will release Jimmy Garoppolo?
No.
I mean, they've said they won't, right? They've said they won't.
Yeah.
How could they turn around and cut him after they said he's going to be our quarterback next year? Oh, we were just kidding.
No, and that's why if you listen to their wording, right, just listen to what they say. What they're telling you is because they're both honest people, Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. You just have to listen to the right things they say. And they say, well, yeah, unless there's an upgrade, he's our quarterback next year. And what they're telling you basically is they're going to play this situation as safe as possible because they don't want to just cut Jimmy Garoppolo, move on, and watch Jimmy Garoppolo go to New England for a $12 million contract and totally tear it up. And I mean, maybe he has another 2019 type season in terms of his numbers, which is a solid starter. And they once again win a ton of games because he's cheaper. He knows their system. Bill Belichick's a great coach.
That's
right?
Nightmare. Yeah.
Right.
And then you all get fired because Jed York's like, what are you doing?
Right. And if you do it for the scenario you laid out and Andy Dalton goes 8-8, it's bad. It looks bad, right? Even though I don't believe quarterback wins are a stat, it just looks bad, right? It's bad. So I don't think they'll release him in any capacity unless, like, hey, we got to trade for Matthew Stafford in place and nobody really wants Jimmy or people are not really negotiating to where we want for Jimmy because we don't want to do it for a fifth or a fourth and we want to do it for a second and nobody wants to give us a second. Okay, when you cut Jimmy in that capacity, at least you can be super confident that with Matthew Stafford, you're going to be as good as you were with Jimmy in terms of record and you're going to be better in terms of his play, right? So I don't think they're going to release Jimmy because of those reasons.
I have another reason, and it's more cynical, but I think it's relevant. Cutting Jimmy, even though I think they could explain it to the fans and we could explain it to the fans that it's very much a financial thing. This is very much because of the pandemic, that if the pandemic hadn't happened and the cap continued to rise, you wouldn't have to do this, that he actually would be affordable. But because of the pandemic, this is a cap casualty move. Still, I feel like the way the Niners, it would look like they were admitting a mistake. It would look like they were admitting that trading for Jimmy Garoppolo and certainly giving him that contract was the wrong move. And I got to say that this regime has not been eager to admit any mistakes. The way that the Patriots do. The Patriots like, you know what? Wrong move. Moving on. Don't care. Sorry. Didn't work out. The Niners are like, nah, man. You're like, Solomon Thomas, we'll just give you one more chance, man. Dante Pettis, maybe you just need another offseason. It seems to me it would be a departure from the way they do business.
I think that's definitely plausible. And I think it's real. It's not just something that you're throwing out there. And I don't even think it's frankly that cynical because, I mean, you want to be right. And it's really hard to do what New England does, which is like just cut guys after 2 years that they drafted fairly high, or what Trent Baalke did with A.J. Jenkins, trade him after 1 year and basically say, well, I was wrong picking this guy 30th overall. Like, that's nuts.
The minute you cut Jimmy Garoppolo, you lose the trade. Doesn't matter. Right. Doesn't matter what happened. You lost the trade. You traded for Jimmy Garoppolo. You cut him, and he probably ends up back in New England for cheaper. Everyone
it doesn't matter what New England got for him.
Exactly. Everyone calls
because he's no longer your franchise quarterback either. So yeah, I think that's definitely a valid reason too. And someone brought it up. So the entire trade thing with Jimmy, I think there was a question: why do you think Jimmy would restructure? Well, why should Jimmy restructure? Right. I just unless it's like they're going to keep him long term and stuff, I can't speculate what he's going to do on something that John Lynch just said. I don't feel the need that we need to restructure him and all of that. So unless he's getting more money and stuff, I just don't understand why he should restructure. It's not in the best interest of him.
Oh, sorry. The only incentive there would be is for him to get more guaranteed money and more long-term guaranteed stability. And the Niners aren't willing to give him that. That's the whole point.
Right.
They want him to be cheaper and even more easily movable. And I don't think that's what Jimmy wants.
Right. Because the other thing with the restructure is that even if Jimmy's willing to restructure, the reason the Niners didn't touch his contract last year is for the same reason they probably won't touch it this year, because they're not 100% sold with him, and they have an easy out. It's basically a string of 1-year contracts. That's what his contract is. Each year they can basically make a decision on him. So if you restructure and change it and give him more financial stability, give him more money, give him more years and all of that, you lose that leverage. And if he does end up starting 3 years in a row and you realize that, you know, he's not even the guy that we thought he was and stuff, you're the Los Angeles Rams. You're just stuck with Jimmy G for 3 years, the way the Rams are stuck with Jared Goff. Who wants Jared Goff? The Rams don't even want Jared Goff.
I want to finish this segment by making an impassioned plea to Kyle Shanahan himself. Kyle, I know you watch, especially Mondays with Vish. So here's what I want to say, man. We know what you think of Jimmy Garoppolo, and we freaking agree with you, all right? You made it real clear when you called 8 passes in the NFC Championship game. You don't trust him. You don't. And I don't either. You want to move on? Great. You had the opportunity last year to probably trade that dude for a first-round pick and replace him with Tom Brady. And you whiffed. You balked. I don't get it, man. Don't make that mistake again. I don't understand how you called 8 passes in mid-January, and then in mid-February, we're like, nah, I can't trade this dude for a first-round pick and replace him with Tom Brady. That doesn't make any sense, man. Go with your heart. Have some conviction, man. Man up and move on. It's your team, dude, not Jimmy's. Come on. That's all I'm saying. All right, we got to answer some questions now. Sean says, Vish, what do you think the situation in Philly is like now? Intense friction between Hurts and Wentz. One's available. Maybe. I mean, would you want Jalen Hurts? No. I wouldn't want
Jalen Hurts is fit for what they did in their offense in Philly. You got to be a shotgun offense where you use him as a runner. And, you know, I don't even think Jalen Hurts is that good. Like, he had 3 or 4 pretty good games. Like, what I like, just because he looked like Carson Wentz, who was playing some of the worst football in the NFL, doesn't make him this fantastic quarterback or anything.
No. Vish, your connection's going in and out a little bit. I'm going to kick you out.
Is it?
Come back in. Just come back in. Right. It'll work.
Okay.
I promise. All right. It's okay. Vish going to come right back. It'll work. Hold on. Yeah, I don't really like Jalen Hurts. What were his numbers? Can someone get his numbers up? He's not good. He's a good scrambler. He runs around. All right, here we go. Yeah, okay, you're back. Yeah, how good was Jalen Hurts? Let me look up his numbers real quick. I think he's kind of overrated. if he's even rated that highly. His quarterback rating was 77. He was 1-3. He completed 52% of his passes. Yeah.
He had the one really nice game against Kyler Murray in Arizona. He's had moments, right? He looks pretty good, but he's not just a guy. Oh, let's get Jalen Hurts.
He lost to Arizona though.
Right.
And he completed 54% of it. He's just not. Here's the thing. He's not accurate enough to be an NFL quarterback. He's not. I don't think he's ever going to complete 60% of his passes. I could be wrong. People said that about Josh Allen. I don't believe it. I just don't believe in him.
Josh Allen threw in college, though, right?
He did.
And he had special arm talent.
Who would you choose between Drew Lock, Dak, or Jalen Hurts?
Dak.
Dak is one of the better quarterbacks in the league. He's just too expensive.
Yeah, Dak. I don't really like Jalen Hurts. I don't really like Drew Lock. Dak for $50 million is better than both of those guys cheap to me. That's my opinion right now.
Yeah. Okay, we got a question from Michael Alinas, but I can't put it on the screen for some reason. There are upgrades out there. Let's be real. No coach in the league is going to win more than 10 games without their starter. Jimmy shown before injury, he was on a downward spiral. Yeah, I don't think that you have to have Jimmy. I think the point about Kyle and his record with Jimmy is that not that he needs Jimmy, he just needs a starter.
Yeah, that's the thing. To me, the record with Jimmy is more of it's indicative of who Nick Mullins and CJ Beathard and Brian Hoyer are than it is of who Jimmy Garoppolo is. I think Jimmy Garoppolo is a solid player and Kyle Shanahan is a great head coach, and that's why Jimmy Garoppolo has a great record. It should be more Jimmy Garoppolo has a great record with Kyle Shanahan than it is Kyle Shanahan has a great record with Jimmy Garoppolo, because I think there's a lot of solid mid-tier quarterbacks, like take Derek Carr, for example, who I think is more talented than Jimmy. I saw this. I was like, yeah, I saw this. And I think if you put Derek Carr in this offense, and I think a lot of Niners fans don't want to admit it, but I think Derek Carr would have similar success in terms of wins and losses.
He'd be better. I'm sorry. I think he would win a ton of games. His numbers would be fantastic. He would actually be much more efficient throwing the ball. He'd get the ball down the field and outside the numbers. What a concept.
He's got a really strong arm. People don't realize how strong Derek Carr's arm is. And he can really move.
Carr to Ayuk? Yeah, dude, he would be really good. Absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know what we're talking about there. We're just answering a question now. We're out of topics. We were going to have an Andy Dalton topic, but we basically covered that. There's really no reason to talk about that redheaded guy for more than 5 minutes on his own. Sorry, Andy. I mean, the point isn't to bring in Andy Dalton for more than 8 games. If you sign Andy Dalton, the idea is you're signing him so you don't have to start your rookie week 1 if he's not ready. You love him to be ready. But you're drafting quarterback.
Okay, I think with a healthy roster, if Andy Dalton is only making $8 million and it's a 1 or 2 year deal, and you have a fully healthy roster with Kyle Shanahan coaching, I think Andy Dalton could make the playoffs.
That's the thing. I mean, he's made the playoffs before. He was actually a winning quarterback before he got his second contract. And
he did it with multiple different coordinators.
Absolutely. Yes. Yep. So I think he could. Hold on. I wanted to look at how much he was paid last year. Hold on. I don't think you would have to even pay him that much.
It was $5 million.
Is that what he made with
I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure it was $5 million.
Cap number was 3. He might have gotten a little extra money somehow, some way. But dude, 1 year, $3 million? Yeah. Come on. I mean, like, you give him this defense, this run game, and these weapons, he couldn't miss, dude. He's not that bad. He throws a pretty good ball, actually. I think he spins it decently.
He's not bad at all.
Not bad.
He had similar numbers to 2019 Jimmy Garoppolo in years past when he had AJ Green, Mo Sanu, Marvin Jones, and Jay Gruden, who was fine then and got a head coaching job calling the plays, or Hugh Jackson.
And he wasn't, I mean, first of all, he was 4-5 this year as a starter in Dallas. And he was playing with one of the worst defenses in the league. I mean, he and the offense weren't the reason that they were a below.
Their offensive line stank.
Offensive line stank. The defense was terrible, and he still went 4-5. It seems to me that basically he won a lot of games his first 5 years in the league. Then he got his second contract and started making 9-10% of the cap. He's not good enough to justify that. And he started to become a losing quarterback. Well, It's all about the price point, in my opinion. So
yeah, I mean, and it's not like the 2019 Bengals had any or 2019 2020 Bengals had any talent, and we've all agreed, right, that Andy Dalton isn't the type of guy that's going to elevate a roster. We're just saying don't elevate anything. Just come in here for super cheap with this great roster and great play calling, and just do your job. And I think Andy Dalton is a starter in the NFL to do that job.
Ezio asked a question that I love. I think it's the question that Jed York needs to be thinking about. Should the 49ers promote Saleh to head coach and put Kyle at OC? Why not, Vish?
Absolutely not. I've heard what you said, but here's some of the things that Kyle Shanahan has proven that Robert Saleh hasn't. Kyle Shanahan has developed coaches. Developing coaches is an underrated part about being a head coach in the NFL, because oftentimes when you're managing, right, Kyle Shanahan has to be able to send a message out. He's not only coaching players, he's coaching coaches. How many different coaches have developed under Kyle Shanahan that have had success? Kyle Shanahan has proven to do that. And then the other thing,
listen. I want you to listen.
You can go Mike McDaniel, Mike LaFleur, Matt LaFleur, Sean McVay. That's 4 just off the top of my head. I think there's more. I mean, Raheem Morris coached under him in Washington. He's had a head coaching job.
How about since he came to the Niners?
Since he came to the Niners, I mean, Rick Sangarillo got a promotion. Mike McDaniel, he promoted. Mike LaFleur, he promoted. They're both 2 of the hottest coordinator names. So he's proven to do that. And on the defensive side, right, for whatever reason, he was the one who hired Robert Saleh. And the thing with Kyle Shanahan is that he's proven that he knows philosophically exactly what he wants in a defensive coordinator, exactly how he wants the entire picture to be ran, and exactly in terms of he's had success away from Robert Saleh. Robert Saleh is still green. He's had 3 years of success, and all 3 years have been with Kyle Shanahan. Robert Saleh is great in theory, right? Great presence, fantastic presence, actually, not just great. Really good, great game planner, really smart, fantastic communicator. But he's had 3 years of success with Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan is, I think, I understand why you say this. I totally get it. You don't have
to agree on this. I'm not trying to change your mind. I'm not trying to change your mind. I do understand that people don't agree with me. I'm just trying. I kind of feel strongly that this is going to play out in my favor, and that I just want to have my word down now. Even though no one's going to agree with me, I just want to say it now and just let it play out, because I'm not looking to win, a popularity contest on this one. I know this is
not about winning the battle. It's about winning the war.
I just want to be on record saying that in 2021, while no one else thought this was feasible, I thought this was the right thing to do, even though it's crazy.
Okay, fair enough. I totally disagree.
I feel like, understand, the reason and the way I would say it from Jed's mind is, look, I've seen 4 years of Kyle Shanahan in an executive decision-making position, and he's no good at it. He's good at a lot of things, but I see 4 years of him making bad decisions, and from all the research I've done, people don't improve their decision-making past their mid-20s. You, Vish, still have improvement to make because you're basically still a kid. But from what I've learned from the psychological studies done the last 60 years in this country, you're basically who you are as in terms of a decision maker and in perception by your mid-20s. One more thing that troubles me about Kyle. I think he's always going to be an excellent offensive coordinator. And he'll be in this league a long, long time, and he might win rings as an offensive coordinator. But what's going to hold him back as a head coach, again, not just decision-making. How can you make a good decision if you don't even have, I want to use the word perception. So what I say is like me and him will watch the same training camp practice, right? And I'm not an expert, but I can tell you, I saw within the rookie minicamp that Dante Pettis wasn't going to work out. I mean, he had alligator arms over the middle. I wrote it. You could see it. I saw early on that Brandon Ayuk was a stud, or that Jeff Wilson Jr. is good, or that Javon Kinlaw really isn't a pass rusher yet. As long as you're looking and you don't let your preconceived notions block what you're seeing, you can be perceptive. To me, he's not perceptive, man. His ego won't let him honestly see what's right in front of him, and that's a problem.
Okay, fair. But if you're also Jed York, right? Kyle Shanahan has a track record of taking what was a terrible roster and turning it into a Super Bowl one in 3 years. Robert Saleh, with all these executive decisions, frankly, we have no experience of watching Robert Saleh do this. Tim Kawakami wrote an article before the Super Bowl. The wide 9 decision and the change to change this front totally from the Seattle 8-man front and go to basically the 4-3 with a wide 9 was suggested by Kyle Shanahan. And Robert Saleh implemented it, right? He did a fantastic job. They both agreed on bringing in Chris Kasarik, and they made it work. But Kyle Shanahan made that suggestion. And that's just one thing. They play a lot more split safety defense now. Some people credit it to Joe Woods. I don't know. Joe Woods might have helped, but it's still Robert Saleh's defense. So I'm sure he wants that defense to be played that way, and they play it that way. But we don't know how much input Kyle had in saying, hey, this is where the league is trending. This is what I find to be the toughest to play against. This is where we need to go. And so, there's nobody that's going to be right today about this. That's why we're having this debate. It's going to be 4 years down the road when we see Robert Saleh, who's going to deservingly get a head coaching job, and we'll see how he does. And even then, we might not be able to evaluate because Kyle Shanahan is in full control of the 49ers organization. Robert Saleh might go somewhere. Right. He might go somewhere where he has a GM who makes a bunch of wrong decisions and ruins it for him.
It's a really great question. I like the debate. It's fun to get my ideas out there and at least say them. I know it sounds crazy. But again, what I would finally say, if you think, man, Grant's really lost it, I can't even take him seriously anymore, is the way I look at it is the offensive coordinator job and the coordinator job and the head coaching job. Like if there's a Venn diagram, the overlap in skills is almost non-existent. They're two different jobs. And Kyle has shown that he's elite as a coordinator and does certain things well as a head coach. But I have questions about his ability to be a head coach. And what Vish is saying is, dude, you have no idea what Robert Saleh can be as a head coach, and that's a great point, too. That is a really good point. I have a feeling that he can be a good coach. He seems to show the traits of leadership and a good decision maker. I don't even know what decisions he's made. Maybe he's the one who wants Solomon Thomas. Maybe he's the one who banged the table for a Keller Witherspoon. I don't know. So that's a good question, man. Good point. Who would you rather have, Trubisky or Dalton, as a bridge quarterback?
Dalton.
Yeah. First of all, he's cheaper.
And Trubisky is still an unknown, right? We saw him play better when they changed this offense, moving him under center and building it around the bootleg. Every quarterback plays better in that system. But Andy Dalton has had success in multiple systems. I don't know why people want to now just act like Andy Dalton's a bum. I'm not saying he's a good quarterback, franchise quarterback, or even a great one. But I'm saying Andy Dalton's okay. And if you only have to pay him $5 million, I really think you can make the playoffs with him if you have the roster the 49ers have.
And the coaching and the scheme and the defense.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, remember, his number one job when he comes to the 49ers is hand the ball off. That's job 1, 2, and 3. And then from there, you know what I'm saying? It's not that hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so Trubisky, he's fine, but like he's still a project. Andy Dalton.
You know what Andy Dalton is.
Yes. And again, Trubisky shouldn't be going to a team that is going to draft a quarterback in round 1 or round 2. Like he should be going to a team and be a backup to a team that doesn't want to draft a quarterback.
Trubisky needs to stay in Chicago. Look, if you're the Bears, you got one chance. He looked pretty good. I thought he played pretty fine yesterday in the playoff game. I know people were getting on him, but at this point, he's kind of just the easy target. I thought he played fine. He made a couple of nice throws. He made a couple of bad throws. You found something that works with him. You gotta do it. Unfortunately, whether you're convinced that it's gonna work or not, you have to do the due diligence and just say, hey, let's try it one more time.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know what Sea Pigeon poster you're talking about. No, I'm not a Seahawks fan. Give Jimmy to the Patriots for high draft picks to replace the draft pick we would lose getting Watson. What do you think? If they had traded traded Jimmy to the Patriots last year, you might have got a high pick.
I mean, while we're at it, hey, who do you not like on this roster? Nick Brown. Just tell me what's your least favorite guy on the roster, and let's throw him to some team for 3 first-round picks. That it's unfortunate, but that's not the reality of how the NFL works. And just a little perspective on the Jimmy trade, because this is something that we've discussed. It's something we're going to discuss, right? I think the most similar thing would be Ryan Tannehill, who signed a large contract and was in his last year of a contract that paid him about $18 million a year in Miami. And the big question with Ryan Tannehill was him and Adam Gase were winning in Miami, but Ryan Tannehill couldn't stay healthy. Mm-hmm. And then they traded him to Tennessee, right? So they had a winning record when Ryan Tannehill started. He couldn't stay healthy. They traded him to Tennessee. He was a pretty good player in Miami. Now he's become a top 10 quarterback in Tennessee, in my opinion. The thing with Ryan, right? But the thing with moving Ryan Tannehill was, I think it was either a 4th or 5th round pick. Okay, so it wasn't a high pick. And the other detail was he had his contract fully restructured. where it was 1 year, $7 million with the Tennessee Titans, and the Miami Dolphins paid $5 million of that contract. And why did the Miami Dolphins pay $5 million of that contract? It's because they had a lot of cap room, and that was the year, well, are they going to tank and all of that, and then Brian Flores, they had somehow win 5 games with Fitzmagic. It was the tank for 2 a year. So I think that's the precedents that we need to look at. That's what we need to look at with Ryan Tannehill and Jimmy. I mean, Ryan Tannehill is the example with Jimmy Garoppolo, and I don't think the Niners are in a position to trade him and pay a reasonable sum of his salary and do that. I don't think that that's what they would be in on.
Okay. Jason says, what about Rex Ryan being the new defensive coordinator? He's an elite DC. Why hasn't his name been brought up?
Because here's the thing. When Kyle Shanahan talks about defense, he always talks about sound scheme. Rex Ryan plays a lot of unconventional defenses, and they work, right, where you're blitzing a bunch of people from a bunch of different spots. But Kyle Shanahan looks at it and says, that's why he says when he plays a guy that blitzes a lot, he says, like when they played Wink Martindale versus Baltimore, he said they're gonna get us on some calls, but we're also gonna have a lot of opportunities to hit explosives. The reason he liked the Seattle scheme and he wanted that defense is because he thought it was a really sound defense from a technical standpoint, where they had a scheme that they could fall back on. That's why
sound means conservative. It means we're gonna rush 4 and play 7 in coverage. It's tough. It's tough to find openings against 7 in coverage if that front 4 is a good pass rush. When you blitz people, then there's all kind of openings and one-on-ones, and for a guy like Kyle Shanahan to exploit if there's protection in time.
Right, and it also means, hey, we're gonna start with this. We're gonna start with one type of front that we're gonna be really good at playing, and we're gonna have this base thing for a defense that's base personnel, base scheme that's gonna be easy to teach. It's gonna be translatable, and it's gonna be something where we're gonna be really good at playing first. It all starts there.
If you're an aggressive coordinator and you want to blitz, you don't spend all your resources on pass rushers because you're manufacturing pressure.
Right.
You're spending your resources on Darrelle Revis because you need a guy who can hold up man-to-man when you play.
And Antonio Cromartie. Right.
Right, exactly. So the Niners just aren't built that way. They got Bosa. They got Armstead. No. They would be more probably interested in DeMeco Ryans or Gus Bradley. Although from Bradley's perspective or from Saleh's perspective, I think they might work together. That's the way I would say it. What, Raheem Morris, right?
Raheem Morris, let's go.
Raheem Morris. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Dan Quinn is the new DC for the Cowgirls.
Yeah. Bad hire.
Bad hire.
Bad hire. At some point, I don't think Mike Nolan is good. I hate Mike Nolan. I'm going to say that right now. I really, really dislike him.
Mike Nolan. You don't hate him. I mean, he's actually.
I dislike what he did to the 49ers. 6-year-old me is still upset and crying when they used to lose games and stuff.
Okay, fair enough.
Wearing his suit. He was wearing his suit. I couldn't look for reason, but
I wear a suit.
At some point, Mike Nolan was wearing a suit as a coach and all that. But at some point, you got to look yourself. If you're Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones and look at the mirror and say, Mike Nolan didn't give Jalen Smith that contract. You gave Jalen Smith that contract, and Jalen Smith isn't that good. Mike Nolan didn't decide to pay DeMarcus Lawrence like he's Myles Garrett and Joey Bosa. You decided to pay him like he's Myles Garrett or Joey Bosa, and he doesn't impact the game like those guys do. So, and it's like you give him
Mike Nolan didn't hire Mike Nolan. Mike McCarthy did. The idea that they could put that all on Nolan, they should have fired McCarthy.
What happens with the Dallas Cowboys, right, is that in theory their talent becomes good. Because if you're a reasonably good Dallas Cowboy, you make the Pro Bowl, the media's all talking about you. ESPN does like 7 different segments about the breakout season you're having. You get overpaid. And now, because narratives don't change, everybody's set in their mind. Jalen Smith is a good football player. They have it set in their mind. This guy is very good. So whatever happens, however bad that guy plays, it's always the coach's fault, right? This is what Jason Garrett fell on this sword for years. There were players that were mighty overrated who made a bunch of Pro Bowls when they didn't deserve to make it because they were Dallas Cowboys. And now Jason Garrett, you're only going 8-8. Well, these guys aren't as good as you think they are. They're really not. It's not just Jason Garrett. Jason Garrett is not the best head coach. We all agree there. But the players aren't also as good as people make them out to be. And, it's an unfortunate reality.
Jones' son picked the players. That's the problem.
Right. So because of that, right, they market the players to be the stars. They market the players to be better than they are. And the coaches constantly get blamed for bad personnel decisions.
Adrian Montanez says, do you believe that the lack of signed defensive cornerbacks is due to Kyle thinking Saleh would be gone by prior to this year, leaving room for a new coordinator to choose who he wants? It's an interesting thought. I hadn't thought of it, but I don't think that would be like thinking 8,000 steps ahead.
Yeah, I don't. I think that's one to consider too many different things. I just think that the way they looked at it with their scheme and all of that, the way it was at the time, they felt they didn't need stellar cornerback play. And this year they needed better cornerback play, and Jason Verrett provided that fix. We'll see who comes in and where they want their defense to be. The one thing I do know with Raheem Morris is that, I mean, they drafted A.J. Terrell this year and when he was the DC. So I think that he does value at least more cornerback play because his defense isn't just an all zone defense and stuff. So if they hired him, I think they would have to draft a corner.
Yeah, I got something to say too. It seems to me that Robert Saleh, he wants to rush 4 and drop 7 in coverage, and it works against pocket quarterbacks. It really works against. It's the best way to defend Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, all these guys. But it doesn't necessarily work against mobile quarterbacks. How many times have we seen it? Because as soon as that mobile quarterback breaks the pocket and extends the play, your zone coverage breaks down. Everyone has to mark up, and it's man-to-man, and he has the advantage. We've seen it over and over and over again. And what did Robert Saleh finally do to solve the mobile quarterback problem? Blitz, rush 5, keep the guy in the pocket, bring the guy off the offense's right to force the quarterback to roll to his left. I mean, the best answer against these mobile quarterbacks is to rush 5. And the only way to rush 5 is to have really good corners who can cover man-to-man. And it's like you can get away with them too because these mobile quarterbacks aren't super precise throwers anyway. They're not going to throw the 40-yard pass down the field to beat man-to-man coverage. They want to run anyway and throw the 10-yard pass over the middle. So these corners are really important. And when you look at how expensive these pass rushers are, I mean, Joey Bosa is getting like Jimmy G money. Those are quarterback prices anyway.
And either way, right, Eric Davis, when he came on here, he told us it's the hardest position to play in the NFL. I actually agree with that statement. And the thing is, like, drafting a corner in theory makes sense, but drafting a corner in the 2nd round, 3rd round, 4th round, it's really hard to find a really good player. I mean, look at the top corners in the NFL. Bump and Run Gilmore, 9th overall.
Think about
pick.
What you're trying to ask
Marlon Humphrey.
You want them to cover the best wide receivers in the league, man-to-man, without help. How are you expecting a 3rd round pick to get that done?
Right. And so they're the best athletes play out there, right?
Yes.
Right. So the best athletes are usually drafted in the first 15 picks of the draft, and that's why the best corners in the NFL, besides a couple of them like Xavier Howard being one exception, are usually picked later in the draft. And there's a few exceptions
because he went to a small school, right? I mean, people
and then there's a few other players who are playing really well, but they're also playing really well within a specific scheme, like Darius Williams with the Rams and all of that. But these other guys like Jalen Ramsey,
Tremaine Brock, back in the day, yes.
Right.
But again, that's always
Bryce Callahan.
Like that, chances are it's on a team with the best front 7 in pass rush in the league. Chances are.
Right. Or with the best player in the league.
Right.
Maybe one of the best players ever.
Right.
So
yeah, I mean, Carlos Rogers was decent, but I mean, he was very much a product of the front 7.
But he was also a spectacular athlete.
Right.
4-3. He was drafted 9th overall for a reason. He was a great athlete.
It wasn't like he was a shutdown corner, I mean.
No. But
it's not exactly what Brett did this year.
Right. But what they asked him to do in the slot that year was actually a very, very difficult job. And one of the more underrated storylines was that the downfall with the 49ers was the Carlos Rogers couldn't do that job after 2011. He wasn't that good at it anymore. He lost a couple steps. He wasn't that quick. And that's what really hurt their defense, because that first year he was still quick, he was still explosive, he was really lockdown for them. And then
the only guy who could really get him was Victor Cruz. Like, he did a great job against Randall Cobb and basically. Anyway.
Right. And the thing with the Victor Cruz ultimately was that him and Eli had a special connection too. And a lot of times Rodgers would be there and he'd just get beat because they were special.
True. So how was school today, Vish? Good day?
It was pretty good. It's quite the adjustment getting back into it, having to note take and be diligent about getting stuff done for school. So
did you do it from home?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. And how, were you like three weeks off, or what'd you have?
I had about a month off, basically.
Oh, damn, nice. All right, hold on. Last question, and then I'm tired. Mark Lamar says, Vish, I want Stafford too. Watson or Stafford?
Stafford. And it's not that I think Stafford's better than Watson. Stafford's cheaper, and you're giving up less for Stafford.
It seems to me that Stafford hasn't asked for a trade. If I were Robert Saleh and I was auditioning, interviewing for that job.
Grant, don't say anything. Don't say anything.
If you were Robert Saleh, wouldn't you say, "Hey, look, I could win 11 games next year. Hire me, I'll win 11 games." You see what Stefanski's doing with Cleveland? I could do that here. That's what I would say. I don't know if I can believe it, but that's what
that's the thing though, right? He's already getting if you're getting the Detroit job, there's one redeeming quality to that job, and that's Matthew Stafford, DeAndre Swift. But mostly Matthew Stafford. If you lose Stafford, then you're basically stuck trying to work out Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia's bad contracts, like Trey Flowers, Jamie Collins, all of that.
No, I still think they can win with Stafford. He's not outrageously expensive. He actually is borderline top 5 in terms of skill set. You can put him physically up there with anyone.
Mm-hmm.
They really should hold on to him and give it one more shot with someone.
The one thing I will say, though, is I think if Robert Saleh goes there, I think Jeff Okudah, who had kind of an up and down rookie season, I think he would be spectacular with Robert Saleh.
Absolutely. Yup. All right, Vish, thanks so much for coming on. Are we going to be doing afternoons from now on? Does that work better for you?
Yeah, this is going to be – I think this is the new time slot probably.
Right. Sounds good. So look for us 2:00 on Mondays because Vish still is a student and, academics first. He's not a student athlete, but a student journalist, which is pretty cool. So thanks, Vish. Thanks for watching, everyone.
As always.